Sometime in May, shortly after the May 28th meeting, refusal to seek written verification. According to Jayadvaita Maharaj and Satsvarup Prabhu, the following event took place shortly after the May 28th meeting. Satsvarup was discussing the meeting with Jayadvaita Maharaj. How, at least according to the GBC report, which was most likely written by Satsvarup, Srila Prabhupada said he would soon select some men who would become regular gurus. Jayadvaita suggested that Srila Prabhupada be asked to sign a written statement verifying that this is what he wanted. Satsvarup, at the time he was Goswami, brought this up to Tamal Krishna Maharaj, who was acting as Srila Prabhupada's personal secretary at the time. This incident was related by Rupa Vilas during the 1990 North American GBC meetings. Here is a video of what was said about this at that meeting.
Well, according to Satsvarup Maharaj's account, he's recently published an account. There was no confusion in his mind, but he had a conversation with Jayadvaita Maharaj, and since he's here, he can confirm that it was his understanding that the persons who were nominated as Ritviks would later become gurus after the departure of Srila Prabhupada. And Jayadvaita Maharaj pointed out that it may seem perfectly clear to him, but that others might not think it was so clear, and they should get it in writing. Is that basically? Yeah. All right, so then Satsvarup Maharaj took his advice seriously, so he tried to approach Tamal Krishna Maharaj to get this in writing. And this is his own account. I'm just going to read very briefly what happened. He said, anyway, I asked Tamal Krishna Maharaj to please get this in writing. He asked, why? I said, because people will not understand that Prabhupada picked the regular gurus when he named the persons who would initiate while he was still with us. Tamal Krishna Maharaj replied that he himself knew very well what Prabhupada intended, and that was good enough for him. I tried again to ask him to ask Prabhupada to sign something, but Tamal Krishna Maharaj was not willing. So then he goes through he said, so Prabhupada never signed a paper.
Requesting that Srila Prabhupada sign an official document verifying his position on such an all-important issue was not only the most logical and sensical thing to do, but had it been done, it would have totally and completely avoided the major divisions and problems that have plagued ISKCON over this guru issue since Srila Prabhupada departed. The fact that senior devotees were concerned that there could be doubts about the GBC's understanding and conclusions of what they thought Srila Prabhupada had said should have been taken with all seriousness by Tamal Krishna. And yet he refused to even consider it. Why? According to Satsvarup's account, it was because Tamal knew perfectly well what Srila Prabhupada wanted, and that was good enough for him, Tamal Krishna. What Tamal Krishna thought Srila Prabhupada intended to say was good enough for Tamal Krishna, and so it would have to be good enough for anyone and everyone else in the whole world. This was singularly the most important, serious, and grave issue that would, in the long term, shape the future of Srila Prabhupada's mission. This was a very legitimate and important concern that was expressed by another senior leading GBC devotee and a senior sannyasi. Ironically, this very incident, where Tamal wants the whole world to trust his judgment, reveals just how lacking and wrong Tamal Krishna's own sense of judgment was at the time. Devotees from both sides of this issue agree. Again, on the screen to the right is the GBC's handwritten record for the May 28th meeting, showing what the GBC men present at that meeting thought that Srila Prabhupada said. And further over is a transcript of what Srila Prabhupada actually said. When Tamal Krishna proclaimed that he knew perfectly well what Srila Prabhupada said and intended, he is defending what this GBC report states. And yet, it is this report that I have shown is totally wrong, totally misleading, and totally lacking. Obviously, Tamal Krishna did not at all know perfectly well, or even anywhere close as to what Srila Prabhupada actually said or what he actually wanted. I have again highlighted all the words and instructions that the report left out in blue and show in red what the report added that Srila Prabhupada had not said. Another thing this incident shows is just how much Tamal Krishna had full control over Srila Prabhupada's access at the time. Satsvarup had previously also served as Srila Prabhupada's personal secretary. He was a senior GBC, senior devotee, sannyasi at the time, etc., but he no longer had direct access to Srila Prabhupada. He had to ask Tamal to ask Srila Prabhupada, and when Tamal said no, that was it. Again, I'm not sure who wrote the GBC report. I'm not sure if it was either Satsvarup or Tamal. And by looking at the signatures, I've now conclude that it probably most likely was Satsvarup. But previously in this presentation, I had accused the person who authored it as being single-handedly responsible for having misled the rest of the GBC, which caused them to take ISKCON down the wrong path all these years. However, I need to revise that statement here, because Tamal Krishna shares that responsibility also. Because if he had not been so puffed up and obstinate and had simply taken their GBC minutes to Srila Prabhupada and asked him if this was what he wanted, and to sign his name on it, or another paper, similar, writing, that would have resolved this entire debacle. And in fact, if Satsvarup was the one who authored the paper, this gave Satsvarup, this was an opportunity that Satsvarup would have had to have verified if his, writing was correct or not, if his report was correct or not. Of course, none of that took place. Also, in doing my research, I found a rather disconcerting fact that occurred just 6 days earlier on May 22nd, when the topic concerns what to do with the money in Srila Prabhupada's accounts. At that time, Tamal Krishna suggests to Srila Prabhupada that Srila Prabhupada should sign a paper about the handling of the money. May 22nd.
The money which is in my personal name in different banks, that is being spent for the society, and it will be society property. In this connection, the two deposits, which is allowed some pension to the members of my former family, may not be the 2 points. What is it?
What can I suggest? That in regard to the 3 temples, Mayapur, Bombay, and Vrindavan, you should designate who you want the trustees to be. And in regard to the money which is held in your name, which will be used for the society, that should also be, your signature should be given as a power of attorney to 2 or 3 other persons.
Less than a week earlier, when the topic is money, Tamal advises Srila Prabhupada to give his signature as power of attorney so that the selected GBC members can have legal control over that money. 6 days later, when the topic concerns the disciplic succession and this guru issue, which carries much greater importance and will affect the whole future of ISKCON, to ask Srila Prabhupada to verify in a written and signed statement what he may or may not have said regarding how initiations would be conducted after he departs, Tamal refuses, even despite the concern expressed by other senior devotees. In my view, this brings into question Tamal Krishna's real motive and reasoning why he would refuse to ask Srila Prabhupada to document in writing his stand on this much more important issue. However, it's a question I could only speculate on and have no definitive answer for.